DraftSociety.com presents a Premier League Draft Fantasy Podcast. Welcome to the Key Pass Collective. Your exclusive source for the information, analysis, and advice you need to dominate your fantasy leagues. Come on in. We've been expecting you.
We indeed have been expecting you. Have you been expecting us? We've had a couple of weeks off, so hopefully you have. We've had a couple of random podcasts here and there. We had the one about the mock draft analysis that I did live. Hopefully that came across fairly well and not too confused. We also had a couple of quiz episodes, which we'll be having some more of those coming in the coming days. You've got to get the quarterfinals out of the way. I think Gavin and I have to face each other, and then we'll get on to the semifinals and see who will be the ultimate fantasy quiz champion. So that'll be fun. But today we're back for just kind of a regular episode, a preseason draft preparation episode, which is going to be fun. We're excited about it and feels good to be back. For everybody who's listening, maybe for the first time, this is the Key Pass Collective. This is the audio companion to the Draft Society website. The Draft Society is, of course, your basically one-stop shop for all of your draft fantasy needs. So everything Premier League draft fantasy-wise, we've got you covered. We've got rankings, we've got articles, we've got statistics, we've got literally everything that you could possibly imagine. And being that it is preseason, the most important thing that we have right now is going to be our draft kit, which is live currently. So if you've not checked it out, head over to thedraftsociety.com. The draft kit is there. It is available. You have a couple of options when it comes to the draft kit in terms of how to get it. So we're going to go through a couple of things that are what's in the draft kit, and then also what's kind of like included, and then what are some things that might be free in the draft kit. And then we'll bring in the lovely fellows who are here with us today to chat some draft. So first of all, you got a couple options if you want to get the draft kit. You can get the Ultimate Pass. The reason to consider that one is that it also comes with the entire season of Inner Circle access, which is going to be like our Discord channel that is exclusive trade advice that is confidential if you'd like that. Some rankings, insider information, all that kind of stuff, special trackers, ghost point trackers, those kind of things. But then also, and maybe most importantly, you'll get our free app, which is the Fantasy Toolkit. Literally bespoke advice that is going to give you pointers on who to add week in, week out from the waiver wire, trade advice, things like that. It's an invaluable tool. A lot of people tried it out at the end of last season, and we had rave reviews. So if you want to have all of that in one, the Ultimate Pass is your place to go. Otherwise, if you just want the draft kit, that is $15 US. Pick up the draft kit, and you're off to the races. You've got literally every single article unlocked completely, and you're good to go for your draft. So let's talk about what's in there really quick. First of all, consensus rankings. We are working on those as we speak. We're going to come out with like a little mini version in the coming days. So Toddy's going to tell you that he wants you to get in your brain Rankings Thursday. And so starting tomorrow, we are actually going to be unveiling our first set of rankings. It's a little bit smaller than our normal ones will be because it's so early still, but we're going to hit you with some rankings tomorrow. Tiered rankings cheat sheet, live draft aid, which is another app that will help you live during your draft. Team previews that are so in-depth this year, it's wild. Transfer analysis, which we'll talk to Gavin about. He just finished writing that, and it is insane. It's long. It's Homeric in length. It's beautiful. And then we've got draft strategy articles, undervalued and overvalued players, mock draft analyses, which we've just finished another one that we may write a mock draft on. And there's just a ton more. So the draft kit is your place to be. We're going to get you prepped for your draft. We're going to make sure you dominate that thing. Finally, There are some free things as well. So I just want to point those out quickly. So everybody will have access to our top 75 consensus rankings once we get our full rankings out, which will be in about a week and a half-ish. So once we get our full rankings out, everybody will have access to the top 75 consensus ranks. But everybody who purchased the draft kit will have the sortable version, sortable by every single analyst, and that will actually go up to 150 instead of the 75. We also have free general strategy articles, free league setup articles, free draft 101 articles. And then in season, we've got a lot of stuff that actually will help you week in and week out. That's completely free. Waiver wire articles, Sleepers 11, all that kind of stuff. And then also stat trackers, things like that. So even if you're not subscribed, you want to hit up the draftsociety.com during the season because we've got you covered and there's a lot of good free stuff on there. So that is what we're looking at and why you should trust the Draft Society for your draft prep this preseason. Okay, today on the show, we are going to talk transfers because there have been a lot of them and some big name ones. So we definitely want to make sure that we mention those. We'll spend a good chunk of this episode talking about the Draft Premier League prospects of those transfers and what we expect from them on their new teams. Then the aforementioned rankings, the ones I just hinted at, we're going to talk through some of those and where we differ in our rankings, some of the players who maybe missed out, and we'll spend a little chunk of time just talking about that first round and how we see that breaking down and where we might differ on our opinion on those. So let's go ahead and bring in the crew. We've got today Gavin, we've got Totti, and we've got Ryan. Let's just say hey to them one by one. Gavin, I mentioned you first. It's been a while. How have you been, brother?
Yeah, good to see y'all, and I'm glad to be on. I'm doing well. And like you said, it's great to be back and looking forward to diving into the new season. Started doing a couple mock drafts, so prep is underway.
Yeah, I did too, and I felt completely overwhelmed immediately. So I've definitely got a lot of prep personally still to do. But yeah, it feels good to be back at it. Ryan, you've been in a couple mock drafts so far. How have they been going for you?
Not bad. Totti and I actually just finished one like 20 minutes ago, so it's truly mock season. Yeah, every one of them kind of gives me a few more ideas, and some reinforce some of the ideas I had. Some make me rethink some of the positional strategies I had. But yeah, this is the time to test some stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that we have 2 Liverpool jerseys and 2 white tees. This is I have an old Fernando Torres shirt.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's incredible.
It's Liverpool as well.
We need to make some things like that. Like we need to make some merch that just has like random players doing cool things. I feel like that's something we should do.
Yeah, I've thought about doing a Matty Phillips shirt for a long time.
Yeah, Ari says we need more Liverpool kits in this pod. It's not a kit, Ari, but it still is. It still counts. I know you can't really see it in the window, but yeah. And Ryan, I mean, yours sort of counts as well. I mean, it just depending on the year.
I had a soft spot for that old Liverpool team with Torres up top.
Oh,
it was a good squad. Xabi Alonso.
Who wouldn't? Yeah. Speaking of soft spots for Liverpool, Totti, how's it going? How's your draft prep going? And have you had any thoughts on mock drafts so far?
I think I've only done 2 so far. But yeah, same as the other guys, still getting the hang of it. With our home league draft order randomizer stuff this weekend. So I think for me this is when the prep is starting, when I have my first official draft spot confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the first day of summer situation right there. So.
Our friend Ben Chickens is already stirring the pot, asking Liverpool for the league. No, Ben, I'm not going to go that far. But I do think we'll be better than last year because how could we not?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think so, my friend. But we'll see. Who knows? One thing I didn't mention with the draft kit, we have Simon, who has joined us. Welcome, Simon. How you doing, man? He said, glad to join live. Excited to see the rankings. Some OFPL ones would be interesting too. Worth noting that we are going to put out some OFPL rankings as well on our site. So those will be coming, and check those out for sure. We don't update those as often, but we will definitely have a version of OFPL rankings on our site before we launch. And Gavin, are we doing auction rankings again this year?
Yeah, I'm going to be working on, inspired by the work you do on the tiered rankings cheat sheet, but pulling together kind of an auction values, kind of like tiers. Comes up with some kind of suggested values for what you should be looking to spend based on what your auction budget is. So if you're in an auction league, you can enter in whatever budget you have available to you, and then it'll automatically calculate, these players should be this amount, or you should be looking in this range. And then you can, similar to the tiered rankings sheet, make a copy, adjust it, modify, put your own values in, and keep track as you go through your auction draft.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's amazing. And news from Draft Lad, he says he's thinking about doing some sort of keeper rankings as well. So we're going to have rankings like up the wazoo on our site. So you're going to want to check that out, because basically whatever format you're looking at, we've got you covered. But
Joe, have you mentioned that I think we've had this conversation last year as well, that and I know you have mentioned that we are dropping articles every day to the draft kit, but just to reiterate that it is not a draft kit in a sense that it launches in its final form, but it is a draft kit that is continuously evolving, and we get new articles every day. So when you sign up, you have a look through all the articles, and it's worth checking back every day, checking our social feeds for our new articles and new rankings and what's not, because it's not a fully formed draft kit yet.
Right, and it's also you could also call it a live draft kit, a live document, in the way that we aim to go back and make changes if anything evolves, if transfers happen. In fact, there's a change I need to make tonight to one of the articles that I wrote that talks about Christian Eriksen, because I had mentioned that Mount was an all but guaranteed transfer move, and now that it's happened, I want to go back and just kind of change up that language just a little bit. And we're going to be doing that constantly. And sometimes the analysis might change. So these documents obviously are going to be live. All these articles are live, and we'll be changing them as anything changes with the analysis. So definitely something to keep in mind for sure. All right, boys, let's get into it. So we are going to start by talking about transfers. The one that I didn't put on here was actually the Mount transfer, which I should have. I just completely slipped my mind because it's inside of the same league, and I guess I just didn't even think about it. So that's one that maybe we should shout out later on, but it's not on the list. But obviously, let's just kind of run through the ones that we know about so far, the major ones and the ones that are confirmed or all but confirmed. So obviously, Nkunku to Chelsea, and also Nico Jackson, both in the front line there. We have Szoboszlai to Liverpool, which yeah, absolutely. Totti, will you say the name for us? I want to make sure that I'm on board here.
Szoboszlai.
Okay, that's close to what I said, but not quite.
Yeah, no, it's close enough.
Szoboszlai.
Szoboszlai.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. James Maddison to Tottenham, Kai Havertz to Arsenal, Declan Rice also to Arsenal, Sandro Tonali to Newcastle, Yuri Tielemans to Aston Villa, Justin Kluivert to Bournemouth. I had to remember his first name there. Alexis McAllister to Liverpool, Mateo Kovacic to Manchester City, and then, of course, what's his first name? Nathan Collins. Thank you. Neil Collins. It's always Neil. If you're ever wondering, it's just Neil.
I've never heard Kluivert.
Is it not? How do you say it?
I say Kluivert.
Yeah.
Kluivert?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You don't remember his dad, Patrick?
I know.
Oh, OG Barcelona striker.
Yeah. from the
Kluivert.
Champions League winning Ajax team.
Yes. Okay, now that you mentioned that, okay. I might still say Kluivert. No, that's good to know. That's good to know. Yeah. Speaking of transfers and new signings, we got Banta Boys in the house saying what's up to us. Newest Draft Society writer. Welcome in, Banta Boys. What's up, man? Good to see you. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay. So first of all, we have Christopher Nkunku on the screen. You will see his, this is thanks to FBref, but you'll see his kind of player percentile rankings based on a lot of different key attributes. And so this is compared to other forwards. The tough one with Nkunku is I wasn't quite sure whether to use the comparison between forwards or attacking mids / wingers, which is the same one on FBref. And it's tough to know how he's going to be used, where he's going to be used. But this is essentially his player percentiles when compared to forwards. And if you look at it, the things that kind of pop out to you are obviously non-penalty goals, 91st percentile, XAG, which is 97th percentile, shot creating actions, 94th percentile. In passing, he's basically 90 and above for almost everything. And then interceptions, interestingly enough, which we get points for in this game. Don't forget, he's 93rd percentile in that as well. So as far as Christopher Nkunku is concerned, does anybody want to jump in and give some thoughts on how he might be used or his value for the draft game?
I'm happy to jump in since I did a pretty extensive write-up on him in the transfer analysis article that we
sure
just dropped. So yeah, I think definitely recommend checking that article out. Draft Lad and I put a lot of work into it and are really proud with kind of just the depth of analysis there. But I won't get into everything I talked about in the article, but I think just in terms of where he's going to be playing, I expect him to line up either as a number 10, as like a 4-2-3-1 formation, or potentially even at striker. It really depends, and maybe this is jumping the gun a little bit, but I'll combine some of the conversation around Nkunku and Nicholas Jackson as well. I think Jackson's a little bit raw and may take a little bit time to bed in and get to grips with the Premier League. So we could potentially see Nkunku deployed up top to start the season. I think it's more likely over time that he drifts back into like a second striker or number 10 role. But that is, I don't expect to see him out wide, especially with all the other attacking talent that Chelsea has in the wide areas. I think he'll be more centrally used, but very exciting. I think he's somebody that has a lot of potential to make an immediate impact. And I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how he lines up in preseason.
I think the most damning or most one sentencey info I'd say is that if Chelsea tried to sign him after the season they had, he wouldn't have gone to Chelsea. So he's that much better than anyone on Chelsea currently.
Fair enough.
I think
that's scathing.
I think he's jumping to the front of the queue for both in real life and fan tracks assets on Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, as far as rankings are concerned, I'll just kind of give a little kind of spoiler / look into that. He's consensus ranked 31 for us, and we all basically have him kind of right around the 30s, actually, except for Draft Lad, who has him at 40, and then Genie, who has him at 18. So, yeah, I mean, that's right around a third round value, somewhere in there. I mean, are you all comfortable taking him in that third round?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if hypothetically, and this is obviously not going to happen, but if Chelsea sign another center mid and then do nothing with their transfers, only try to sort of bring up a few youngsters and are at a similar spot with their squad next season, with one season done under Pochettino, them trying to, or starting to click, starting to look like a team, then I'd probably say that Nkunku was going to sneak into middle of round 2. So a working Chelsea and definitely producing Chelsea forward, and the best player at that would definitely be probably first, third of the second round. But we're all very skeptical of how well the Chelsea team is going to gel and work together under, again, a new manager. So I think that's the main source of skepticism. If somehow Pochettino hits the ground running, then I think he will be extremely good value in the third round.
Yeah, I think all the main Chelsea assets are going to be decent value. I think you're just going to have to take a few just to make sure that one of them hits. Because in the mocks that I've been in, all of them are really deflated in terms of value. And Nkunku's always of course the one that goes first. But
sure.
I think the likes of Sterling and a few others are going to provide some decent value. But it's going to be a crapshoot.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting one, I think, for me, and let's not go into Chelsea much deeper, but the interesting one for me is Madueke, who is currently the only right winger they have in the squad. Also Ziyech, who has failed his medical in Saudi Arabia, supposedly.
He'll go, though. I'm pretty sure he'll go. But yeah, no, that's a great point, Totti. And also Madueke, who, we've seen produce in the minutes that he's been given in terms of the draft game.
Yep. So, and he's going in like round 8 or 9 or something like that. So yeah, there is value in Chelsea assets.
Okay. Well, speaking of, let's look at Nico Jackson here real quick, and then Gavin, I'm going to throw it back to you because you wrote the article literally. So Nico Jackson, we're comparing him to forwards again in the big 5 leagues around Europe. And what sticks out for him is the fact that there's a lot more red than you saw previously with Nkunku. He's not quite as polished, obviously very young. Non-penalty goals, 94th percentile. Assists in the 89th percentile, which you've got to love that. Progressive carries, 90th percentile. Successful take-ons, which I'll remind you we get points for in this game. 81st percentile, and then just randomly blocks, 89th percentile as well, but for forwards. So he got like 3. All right, Gavin, I'll let you take it away on Nico Jackson.
Yeah, so I think the key takeaway from this, from kind of his FB ref stats, is his potential. But what is not included there is like the number of minutes that he played. It's a really limited sample size. So we're talking only 15 starts in La Liga for Villarreal last season on loan. And so I think his youth is going to be something that is beneficial. Like Pochettino is really good with developing young talent, and I think he's going to be somebody that can be kind of crafted into an elite level striker over the next couple of years. But I think it's going to take some time. Even just watching, you never get a whole lot out of the scouting videos because they always kind of pick the best moments. But I think when you look at a scouting video and you're like, yeah, he's not up to speed yet, it kind of tells you something. Because it's like, if they're picking out that these are kind of his best moments and it doesn't quite look like he's Premier League ready, it's a little bit of a concern. So obviously he's still young. Some of those clips may have come from a couple years ago, and he's developed leaps and bounds in the past season or so. So I think there's a lot of potential there. And I think that, again, it kind of remains to be seen if he is somebody that is trusted from the beginning of the season. Pochettino doesn't really have another recognized central striker to work with. So he may be. Broya is coming back from that ACL injury. He's been back in training, so he's one potential area of competition. They could sign another striker. Lukaku is still hanging around somehow. So there's a lot of question marks just around like whether or not he will be kind of the nailed on striker at Chelsea. But I think as the season goes on, he's somebody to keep an eye on and maybe target as kind of like a buy low type of player if he's not performing super well.
At Totti, you and I are actually the only two that put him inside of our top 75, which our rankings coming out tomorrow are going to be top 75. And you and I are the only ones that had him in ours. So you were at 68, I was at 71. So my thinking is, for now, he's really the only like number 9. So I think there's value to be had there. I'm nervous about it, but until they sign somebody else, like I'll have him at 71. Sure. Like it doesn't seem like that much of a gamble to me.
Yeah. And also if anyone's done, or for anyone who has done mocks, you'll know what the forward pool looks like.
Yes.
At around the 7th round. So essentially it's more a value not in a vacuum, but in an actual drafting situation.
Ryan, anything on Nico?
No, I saw a little bit of him at Villarreal. The little I saw of him, it was very kind of streaky. Hit a very good purple patch in the last season, and looked great. But I think because he's so young and he'll be just coming into the Prem, and then Chelsea's going to have to work out some kinks. I think he's going to be very inconsistent. But yeah, like everybody said, if they don't sign another actual center forward, then there's certainly value to be had, and you'd be hard pressed to find probably a better punt in like the 9th round. So yeah, he's someone I'm keeping an eye on.
Do you guys, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second, but do you guys, Ryan and Gavin, do you have any idea if we were ranking, not just our top 75, but our top 150, do you have any idea where you might have had him if you were actually to rank him?
Maybe like 85 to 90.
Yeah, I had him actually in my original 75. And then as I was doing this kind of scouting report and research, I'd bumped him down a little bit. So probably in that like 80 to 85 range.
Okay.
Still, I think worth picking up, worth drafting in the mid rounds. Preseason could change my mind on that. If he's, in the starting lineup as they get closer to the season, then he jumps up probably a couple rounds for me.
Cool. Okay. I like it.
It's also worth noting that Chelsea are top of our fixture difficulty tracker for the first 6 game weeks. They have Nottingham Forest, Luton, West Ham after the Liverpool game on the first weekend. So it's definitely a punt where you will be looking at someone like in the same range, someone like Solanke or someone from the promoted teams who might start, whatever. That definitely makes it more interesting to see the fixture difficulty tracker for me.
Yeah. The chat is talking about Armando Broya. And I think Matty Bird mentions he's coming back from injury. I think that's a big factor. I think we all basically have just, like he mentions here, Evan mentions, Chatter says they go for a bigger striker. That's what I'm hearing too. Like they're going to stick with Jackson. Otherwise, they're going to go for someone like big name. And that's, if anybody listens to Fabrizio Romano and his podcast, it's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. He always talks about the striker dominoes, and that's exactly what he's talking about. So we're really still just kind of like waiting for the first domino to fall in that striker domino, and it hasn't yet. So, if you see an Osimhen, or if you see, I would say, God forbid, Kane, or go ahead, Totti.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Those two seem to be crown jewels of this transfer window when you look at strikers, and there's been a bid from Bayern for Kane, but otherwise the Osimhen sort of rumors are not prevalent, or I haven't seen many.
Yeah,
especially not to Premier League clubs. So there's still some movement there for sure.
Totally.
I mean, is there any chance that he just goes with Sterling up top? I mean, not the sustainable long-term solution, and he's obviously not a Kane, or I can't even remember who he used at PSG, but I mean, Sterling can do a job as a quasi false nine. So like if it was between him and Jackson, I mean, game week 1.
I think it's like, how do you fit in all of these other guys? So right now it's a conversation of like Sterling and Mudryk on the left wing. Are you going to put Nico Jackson ahead of both of them? I don't know. It's, if you can squeeze in Mudryk and Nkunku and Madueke and Sterling all in the same front four, and have a lot of like attacking interchange and rotating the positions, that might work out better as they kind of come to grips with the new play style. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
Isn't the Sterling false nine experiment over? We've seen him miss so many sitters at this point. And between Sterling and Kai, this team cannot afford to have more players missing sitters.
Yeah, but if you like look back to before Chelsea, Sterling scored quite a few goals for Man City and Liverpool. It wasn't really that long ago that Sterling was first round draft pick and warranted first round draft pick. So
yeah, but that was from the left though. So there wasn't as a nine. I think there is an argument to be had, or that Pochettino needs to hit the ground running more so in the attacking game more than anything else, because the defense was actually decent, discounting the injuries under Potter. Obviously nothing was decent under Lampard, but I think there's a consensus that the defense should be fine. There are good players there that can do the thing that they are employed and paid very well to do. Whereas in the attack, this is not the case, or has not been the case for the last year. So I think trying out strikers in alternative experimental systems is probably not a good way to win over fans as a former Spurs manager, starting out after last year at Chelsea. But this is just maybe overthinking a bit. I still think that Jackson will have to do a lot of good stuff on the training field and in the pre-seasons. So we'll see who comes out before the first ball is kicked officially. Yeah,
for sure. All right, that's enough on Chelsea. We said we were not going to talk Chelsea, and then we did for another 10 minutes. But it's going to be unfortunately one of the things this preseason, because you have to talk about the teams where there's question marks, and good Lord, are there question marks on Chelsea? So, all right, well, we're going to leave them in the dust for just a moment. Let's go ahead and move to Liverpool. So, Gavin, I'm going to let you kick it off again, but then, of course, I want to hear Totti's take on Szoboszlai, because, of course, you probably watched him more with the national team, I think, than most of us have. I will admit I've not watched him play for any club teams. I just pretty much a Premier League guy, so I only have so much time in my life. But what have you guys uncovered in your analysis of Szoboszlai? Let me quickly just go over his player percentiles here. So basically, not so much, at least so far in his career, has not really been a goal threat when compared to other attacking mids. 35th percentile in non-penalty goals. He is 85th percentile in assists and XA, and then 91st percentile in shot creating actions, which is huge. I love that. Passing, he's pretty fantastic. Not much of a dribbler, not much of a take-on guy. And then, of course, does actually a little bit of the defensive work as well in blocks and clearances, 89th and 87th percentile, respectively. So, Gavin, what did you uncover in your preparation for your article about Dominik Szoboszlai?
I'm going to let you down and say nothing yet. Szoboszlai actually missed the cutoff for what we included in our first series. So aside from just being familiar with him and understanding that he'll step into that kind of right attacking midfield role most likely, at least for this season, he's somebody I'm very excited about, but I can't say that I've done huge amounts of research into the type of player he is. That'll be in our part 2 of transfer article that'll be coming out in a little bit. So I will hand it over to somebody who's much more familiar and let Totti have his moment.
Bail us out here.
Okay, so I think the big thing with him is obviously he's been at in the RB system since he was a kid at Liefering. He went to Salzburg, then he went to Leipzig. So we know that he's well drilled in the pressing and in the in the RB type system. The big thing with him is he's able to play all across the front line, and he's able to play in the right and the left midfield as well. So he's very versatile. He's a bit raw, I think, for the Premier League. He only spent limited amount of time in the Bundesliga before moving on to Premier League. I think if in an ideal situation, I would have loved for him to stay one more year at Leipzig and then move on. But I think the dominoes fell so that Liverpool needed to move in for him before the clause for him to sign expired last week. So that's why they made the move. I think there is a consensus that he will occupy the right center mid role in the 3-box-3 system, which Liverpool have been playing in the last 10 or so games in the Premier League last season, which means that in lineup graphics it might look like that they're starting as a 4-3-3, but it would actually mean that the 3 defenders will play as a block, and then the 4 midfielders will form a box with 2 McAllister and Szoboszlai in the front line, and then probably Fabinho and Trent in the more closer to the defense, so to say. So I think the crux of whether he will hit the ground running is how he will make the transitions on the right side work with Salah and Trent, because obviously there's a lot of creative energy on the right side, and he's not an out-and-out winger, so I don't expect him to overlap on Salah so that he can get in as an inside forward. So I think the slight concern that I've seen with Salah, that he will keep on doing the drifting wider thing that he did last season, is a concern with Szoboszlai in there, because he is for Liverpool fans, I think the most clear comparison would be a Coutinho type. So I think he is the one to break the mold of non-Fantrax asset Liverpool midfielders. So yeah, I think that's about it. Obviously, we'll have a lot more on him in the Liverpool preview by Robbie and in the transfers by Gavin and Draftlad. But yeah, I think that's essentially it. I can still see a lot of minutes to go around, so I doubt I don't know what we have him. Do you have projected starts for him already?
I don't know about projected starts. I can give you where we have him in our rankings. Let's see.
I think while you look it up, I think the projected starts for him will fall around 25 starts. But obviously that could go either way with injuries. I don't think he just takes over from Henderson from day one. The interesting stat that Robbie brought up in our chat, and I think that's to underline again how we will have a well scoring Liverpool midfielder again, is that after the switch to the 3-box-3, Henderson's points per 90 jumped from 5.6 to 11.9, if I'm not mistaken. So that 11.9 points per 90 for Henderson in the same role that Szoboszlai will occupy gives a lot of hope.
So I'll tell you, we currently have him consensus rank 27, and according to Draftlad's sheet here, we have him projected for 23 starts. So, Ryan, where have you been seeing him go in mocks, and are you comfortable with it?
In mocks with Hungarians, he's gone fairly high.
Just took him in round two.
I will say that. Yeah. Usually at the turn between like end of the second, early third. He's one of those guys that like I would probably feel about Gakpo if he came in January and got like a half season under his belt, got some minutes, could acclimate. I'd feel a lot better about picking him that early this season. But yeah, for projecting 20-25 starts, that's pretty low for a second, third rounder. So I think he's, at least for me, probably falls in the shiny new toy bucket, where I don't know if I could take him that early, but he's got the potential to do it for sure. But I probably want more of a quasi sure thing at that stage of the draft. But yeah, I'm happy to be wrong.
Just to compare in value, and I agree with you, Ryan. To get him, I think you have to be between picks 1 and 5, because then you can either go for him at the end of the second round or hope he gets around to the beginning of the third round. That's where I think his value will lie, and that will be good value. The players we usually pick up to the middle of the second round who are projected to start less than 25 games are exclusively Manchester City players.
Yeah.
So we know that Mahrez, we know that Foden, we know that Grealish will probably not start more than 25 games, but we factor in that those 25 starts will be on the ball money. And that is probably a bit of an exaggeration at first glance for Sobo, but yeah, if someone like, I doubt he gets back to the end of the third round in non-Hungarian mocks or in real drafts.
non-Hungarian drafts. Yeah,
we were talking in our home league where he would go in an all Hungarian league, and there was consensus that he's going to be round one. But that's just to
have him on your team. Yeah.
I mean, I assume you are picking John Duran in round one again.
Of course. Yep. All right. Anything else?
Do you pair him with like a Henderson or a Curtis Jones?
Not a Henderson.
Given the lack of starts. I mean, if Henderson's dropping 10 points a game in that system at the end of the season, and you're worried about,
he's just going to be burning up a spot on your roster, though. Like, exactly. I'd rather just stream, like, try and pick up whoever's in his spot if he doesn't start. You know, if it's same thing with McAllister. Like, if Curtis Jones gets a start, I think he's also somebody you could look at. He's not going to be at the same level. I think that left attacking mids spot is going to be a little bit more defensive than the right side for Liverpool, but. Yeah, I don't know that I would look to handcuff him.
So let me ask you guys a question. Would you take new to the Premier League 23 starts? Well, that's what we're saying, right? 23 starts, 25, maybe 27, who knows? Dominic Szoboszlai, or would you take grade 3 hamstring injury Michael Olise in the third round?
Sobo, for sure.
Same, yeah.
Okay.
They're both healthy. Olise all day, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. But it's interesting bringing that injury into it and trying to figure out where he falls. We have him 41 consensus.
Where I've seen Sobo going is around the like Pascal Gross, Dwight McNeil, MGW round. Late second, early third. That like little stretch of midfield runs in the late second, early third. So that's kind of who he's competing with in terms of draft position.
Yeah. Tony, we should clarify this. Greg has a question. McAllister or Sobo? Do you want to just kind of quickly run through our stance on McAllister and his role in the Liverpool squad in terms of being a fantasy asset?
I think we all agreed that he did wonders for Brighton, but his wonders mostly came as a number 10 in that Brighton squad. He is invaluable for Liverpool because he is able to step up and orchestrate attacks from the edge of the box, but he is primarily signed because he is able to drop back as well and work as a deep lying playmaker / defensive minded midfielder as well. So yeah, I don't see a lot of value for him, and definitely not close to last season's Brighton type value. So yeah, it's a non question for me. I wanted to throw out one more that is of similar value because Olise one is a bit muddled with the hamstring injury.
Mm-hmm.
What about fellow new signing, and maybe we can transition there as well, Mason Mount.
I knew you were going to say that. I don't know how, but I knew that you were going to say Mason Mount, who we have 43 overall in our consensus ranks. Draft Genie, who is a noted Mount hater, has him at 75 exactly, and you know he did that on purpose. He put him exactly at 75
because we forced him to put him in.
Right, pretty much. And the rest of us have him somewhere between 35 and like 50. So I mean, still a variation, there, but a little bit closer than Genie's 75.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd take Sobo over Mount at the moment. I don't know. I feel like there's maybe not enough. I'll say points for lack of a better word, but not enough to go around with Bruno also there in midfield for United. I feel like Bruno is still going to be his usual self and kind of hogging a lot of the build up play. You know, I think the equivalent for Mount is like Chelsea last season Mount as opposed to a couple seasons ago. He's not going to be probably on set pieces. He's going to be a little bit. I guess with the number 7, I'm a little unsure. Like maybe he is kind of set out as a winger, but that's confusing to me. I imagine him in the midfield 3, and Bruno is going to be kind of the most advanced of that trio, and I imagine him getting the majority of the points there. So,
yeah, I think I'm going to go Sobo on that one for me, but that's a tough one. I'm with you. I just think there's too much lack of clarity going on there, and then you also add Eriksen to the mix for some further confusion. I don't know. Anybody else want to touch on Mount?
Yeah, I can't pinpoint his role or his guarantee for minutes, so that's always a red flag.
Yeah. All right, let's move. James Maddison. On your screen, you see his comparison to other attacking mids in the Big Five. So a lot of green on the screen, which we like to see, especially as it pertains to attacking numbers. So a non-penalty goal, 79th percentile, shots, 88th percentile, assists, 90th percentile, XA, 94th, shot creating actions, 87th percentile, progressive passes, 85th, tackles, 83rd, interesting. And then everything else is kind of mediocre from there. As far as I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that in a new system where he's not the man. He's not by far the most talented person on his team. But yeah, I mean, clearly what he accomplished with Leicester was incredible, and he looks like a world-class talent. The question is he still going to have that creative freedom in Ange's system? What do we think about this one, Ryan? You want to tackle Maddison?
Yeah, I'm really torn on Spurs assets. Not for the obvious reasons, but I think because they have a lot going for them in terms of no Europe. They're just going to focus on the league. Obviously, Ange is a very attacking manager. Plays some exciting stuff with what I've seen from Celtic. A lot of their assets are going to be a bit deflated because of the horrible season that most of them had, bar Kane. Having said that, it's still Spurs, and Postecoglou is still coming in his first season in the Prem. It's a very system based approach, so it's going to take some time. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they go. Having said that, we've all seen what Maddison can do fantasy wise. He, everything he does basically equates in points. Even on a relegated Leicester, he still dropped 14.5 points per start last season. His sets are so much better than Son. So I'm assuming that he's going to take over much of that set piece mantle. He's going to have Kane instead of Iheanacho and Daka to aim at. So
maybe not even Kane, but Richarlison.
Richarlison.
Yeah,
we'll Richarlison Iheanacho is actually a decent comp. So yeah, I mean, I don't think he should be a top 10 pick like he kind of was last season. He was like around the end of the first, but I think he starts becoming value early, mid, second round, and that's where I'd probably be looking to pounce because he's got a lot of upside going for him, and he seemingly stayed fairly fit last season. I think 28 starts. So yeah, with just the league to focus on, I think he's got a pretty good narrative in favor of him. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else? That about how we all feel.
Yeah, I think that's right in line. Yeah, I think, Joe, you hit it kind of on the head. He's not going to be the main man, but he's going to have more talent around him, and I think that kind of offsets any sort of downgrade in terms of how often he's on the ball. So, especially if he has sets, I think he's definitely still right in that conversation. Late first round, early second round, mid second round at the latest. I think you'd be getting value there. But yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for him to kind of live in a role that is well suited to him and not be kind of forced into a winger role like he was fairly frequently at Leicester. So I think it's potentially even better suited to his skill set.
We have him at 15 overall in the consensus ranks. Looks like all of us would basically take him over play. Actually, wait, hold on a second. Totti, you would take Phil Foden over James Maddison.
Yeah, I think Foden with KDB hurt and 1 year older, I think the transition to have him more in the KDB role will begin. And also, I am a lot skeptical about potentially Kane-less new manager led Spurs. Than probably more skeptical than the others, it seems. I think Son versus Maddison is a decent conversation to be had.
Sure.
And it will grow closer. The values will become closer as we go on. So I think both are viable picks at the end of the first round, and as we are seeing in early mocks, the end of the first round, beginning of the second round is a bit of a gray area still. So there's no real consensus on the sequence of players. I've seen Rashford go as early as 8th. I've seen Odegaard drop to 12th. TAA drop to 10th, and the beginning of the second round is even more muddled. So I think we'll see a bit more clarity as we move on into the transfer season and closer to the first kickoff. So we'll see. I probably will have Maddison a bit higher at the end of the consensus ranked season, but yeah, currently I'm a bit too skeptical.
Okay, I like it. All right, let's move right along to a couple of Arsenal assets. This is another one I was very torn as to how to compare these players and which data to choose on FBref, because what you're seeing on your screen is Kai Havertz in comparison to other forwards in the Big Five European leagues. Now, of course, we've already got an indication that he's not going to be playing forward, but the problem is when you compare his numbers at Chelsea to other midfielders in the top 5 European leagues, it's even worse than this. And not to say this is bad, but what you can see on your screen is basically, and I'll kind of narrate for the audio listeners, is goals. His goals are shit. I mean, they're really bad. His non-penalty goals, 16th percentile. His expected assists, his XAG is 78, which is actually quite interesting. His passes, though, compared to forwards, again, that's something to keep in mind, but his passes are all in basically the 90th percentile. So it really shows us maybe what Mikel Arteta is talking about when he's talking about his skill on the ball, his ability to sort of distribute and those kind of things. His touches in the attacking penalty area, 82nd percentile, progressive passes, all the way up there at 91. And then he does some defensive work as well. He presses, tackles 90th percentile, blocks 91st, clearances 90th percentile. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. And Ryan, obviously we're coming to you on this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on him, particularly as a draft asset.
Yeah, he's really tricky to assess, obviously, because one, Chelsea were just horrific from top to bottom last season, and much of the previous season. So you have to price that in. Two, he was played in every position, but really the one that he probably would thrive in. And three, he's just a weird dude. He's good at a lot of different things, but not really good at one thing. Having said all that, I put a lot of faith and stock in Arteta's ability to get a tune out of a player. I mean, obviously, seeing what he did with Xhaka last season, I think is pretty indicative. And I think he's got something cooking, obviously, with Kai. The fact that he was willing to spend 60 mil. Or 50 plus 15 add-ons, whatever the hell you want to call it, on him and talking about him in the midfield role. I think he's got something going on. So I don't think a like for like analogy with Xhaka is really apt. I think he's going to be Xhaka with a fair amount of upside. And I'm really eager to see how he beds in. So I'm liking him at the end of the 5th round. I know Totti thinks that's too high, but when you look at who's available at that stage and the fact that he's going to be playing in this fluid, interchanging, attacking orgy at Arsenal, I think he's going to probably pick up some points, shots on target. He's pretty tall, so he can get his head on some things. So I think he's going to be a quasi pleasant surprise. But obviously that's the very Pollyannish, optimistic take on Kai. But again, I think he's decent value in the 5th, 6th. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling. But yeah, he's got so many question marks going into it that it's going to be really interesting to see. But so does everybody at 5th, 6th round. So like, given the potential upside, I'd much rather punt on him than somebody else.
Yeah, I just worry. We have him at 19 starts currently projected. There were a couple people, including Gavin's one of them, who was a little bit more bullish, but even Gavin said 22 starts. So I'm curious, like, how does that play out in the fantasy realm? Because he doesn't strike me as the type of guy you're going to start from the bench. So if I'm only getting...
I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
I don't think the 22 is really accurate.
You think it's more than that?
Yeah, I think they bought him to play him in that midfield role, and the lack of defensive ability is going to be covered somehow in whatever system Arteta puts together. Plus I think he'll get a couple of random starts, maybe up top or on the wing. So I think his flexibility gives him also an added bonus. So I think 22 is pretty low for me.
You think
high 20s, I'd say.
Okay.
So you think the go-to or the main formation will be Rice, Kai, and Odegaard in the midfield 3?
I think so.
I mean, if they're not keeping Xhaka and they're probably not keeping Partey, then there's not many other people who can start in that midfield role. So I guess it makes sense, but that's a thin ass midfield. If they're in fact not keeping Xhaka and Partey.
I mean, Jorginho can do a job. Timber, I think, was primed to be a really good defensive mid, if need be. So I think, and then of course you got Elneny waiting in the wings. So
maybe
of course.
Is there a chance that they're also will experiment with this 3-box-3 with either Zinchenko or Timber moving up to midfield in a situational back 3 and then a box midfield?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they one of the big benefits of Timber is that he can play that inverted role on the right. So it keeps the opposition defense guessing in terms of Zinchenko, with the ability to do the same on the left. And I think Partey's going to stay. I want him to stay because he was, for 2/3 of the season, he was lights out. And if you can, keep him on the bench and fresh for this transitional period, I think that would be the best bet. Unless you get a decent price from Saudi, that's the only way I could see them selling, to be honest.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. That's an interesting one. Like you said, Ryan, a lot of question marks, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. You think back at some of your historically, right? Think back at some of your 5th round picks. Like, I mean, you'd be willing to spend a 5th round pick on Kai Havertz, right?
Yeah, I picked Doherty in the 5th round.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think I took Jamie Vardy there last season. That's
right.
Did not work out.
John McGinn was my comprehensive.
We've all been burnt. So 5th round.
It sounds like a 5th round pick is actually
5th
fine.
round is where picks go to die.
You don't even need your 5th round pick.
We just shouldn't pick a 5th rounder.
Exactly.
Trade it.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man. Okay. All right. Let's see. Moving right along. Declan Rice. This will probably be a little bit shorter of a conversation. It may be similar to McAllister, although I see him being actually, that's a good question. As far as McAllister is concerned, I see him being incredibly valuable for Liverpool. I don't see him being incredibly valuable for the fantasy game. And I'm curious, Ryan, if you think that this is going to be a similar situation in terms of Declan Rice. So what we can see on the screen, obviously his player percentiles, they're fantastic as far as passes are concerned, as far as defensive actions are concerned. His goals for midfielders actually pretty solid, almost 70%, 70th percentile. But as far as assists, not so much. Shots, doesn't get too many. Touches in the attacking third, not too many. So it's just, he is what he is, right? Number 6-ish, maybe number 6, 8 kind of hybrid.
Yeah, I don't think just him going to Arsenal is going to magically make him a much better fantasy asset. I think he's going to do wonders for the team, but I see him sticking around that 8 points per start mark with Arsenal. Maybe a couple more goals as he ventures forward. But yeah, if Arteta starts that midfield 3, he's going to have a fair amount of defensive duties to maintain. So yeah, I think he's just going to be one of those mid-4, mid-5s like he has been at West Ham. I don't see him making much of a move.
He was decent value at West Ham this past season, so he had enough upside for him to be rostered, I think, throughout the season.
Yep.
So yeah, I think he's definitely worth looking at in the later rounds.
That's curious. We have him at 69 overall. I didn't rank him, neither did Robbie, in our top 75. And then everyone else, it seems like, you've got him kind of right around there, really. I mean, Totti is actually the highest on him at 67, but everybody seems to be kind of in agreement around that area.
Problem is he's going to go a lot earlier, maybe not a lot, but he'll go earlier than he should just because of the price tag and the move in a fair amount of leagues. So yeah, I think he's,
Fred was the 3rd round pick when he came in. I'll just leave it there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's get our final transfer out of the way here. So Sandro Tonali has been confirmed at Newcastle, looking like the coolest kid in his middle school class. I don't know if you saw the picture, but he has a hair parted in the middle and a little mustache. Anyway, I don't mean to make fun of the guy. He looks like he's an adolescent in the picture. But what you're seeing on the screen is his comparison to midfielders in the Big Five leagues. As far as his player percentiles go, not much in terms of goals at all, 40th percentile. But his assists, 92nd and 94th for XAG. So progressive carries, 75. So he might actually, nope, never mind. I was going to say he might have a dribble on him, but he really doesn't. Successful take-ons, 19th percentile. So it seems a bit of a limited upside here. Maybe, I don't know. I'm struggling to see, Gavin, maybe you can help me out on this one. I'm struggling to see how he adds value when they already have somebody like Bruno Guimaraes there.
Yeah, so I think what we'll see with Tonali, and I think a lot of people kind of have this misconception that he's a holding midfielder. He's really more of a box-to-box kind of player. And I think the comparison at Newcastle, or the role that he replaces, is Sean Longstaff. He's like a luxury Sean Longstaff, which isn't saying the most amazing thing in the world, but that's essentially what he is. And I think the really interesting thing about the stats that you just had up is like the fact that he's 92nd or whatever percentile in expected assists, and then his pass completion is absolute garbage. So it seems like he's more just like spamming passes and trying to hit long balls. And I think you see that a lot with his time in Milan. Like he would drop down into these kind of half spaces and then play this, really low quality percentage
Hollywood passes.
Yeah, Hollywood passes. That's kind of what he does in these spaces. And so I don't expect him to be somebody that is like a Joe Willock that's getting into the attack and like joining with the strikers. I also don't expect him to be a holding midfielder. I think he's somebody that improves the team, but isn't going to be the fantasy asset that I think a lot of people are expecting him to be.
No one can be Gais Mendieta. He did this the best I think I've ever seen. And yeah, I think he's just a perfect box to box, all action. I think it's probably not the right way to say it. And if there are Newcastle fans in the chat, then they'll crucify me for it. But he's there for the vibes. He's there for he will give 120% on the training pitch, on the field. He's the perfect Eddie Howe player. He's moldable. He is young. He's exciting. He wants to work his ass off. And I believe that Eddie Howe will find a role for him that will elevate the team in real life. I doubt he has any value in fantasy.
Yeah, the only one who ranked him was Draft Lad, 72nd overall. So I think he's watching / listening. So maybe he can give us some insight into that. He said potentially set pieces.
He takes a mean corner.
Yeah.
90% of his assists or 80% of his assists came from corners.
That's what he was talking about in the chat. Is when we were talking about was he just spamming balls in? Draft Lad said maybe set pieces, and that's probably where they came from, which makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and he's not going to take all of those off of Trippier. So like maybe he takes the left-sided corners, but he's not going to be taking every set piece. So
yeah.
If he's here for the vibes, he should be Genie's favorite player, but Genie didn't rank him either, unfortunately. I'll be curious to see where he's at when we do our 150. But yeah, for now, I think we could probably safely move on. All right, we'll do a couple short discussions just about player rankings. Hopefully, we won't get too far into the weeds. Don't want to keep people here all night. But let's just talk through a few things. As I've already hinted at multiple times, we'll be having rankings coming out tomorrow. This is kind of like a preliminary set. So it'll be top 75. And then you can have them also sortable by all of us in terms of who ranked people where. for each analyst, and obviously consensus ranks as well. So we'll talk through some of those and where we differ on them. So I'm going to leave it on the screen for a moment. Positional bias. This will be very quick, I promise, but I just wanted to mention this because you can see on the screen how some of us ranked in terms of bias per position. So if you ranked, for example, forwards higher or defenders higher than everyone else in terms of that position overall. And I was just curious whether you guys did this intentionally or not. So, for example, Gavin, you can see you and we both ranked forwards a little bit higher than everybody else. And I can tell you that I actually did that intentionally.
Yeah, I don't know that I set out to do that, but I do think as I've been going through some of these preliminary rankings and mock drafts and kind of getting a sense of what I'm seeing in terms of who is going to be more valuable at different areas of the draft, I think it makes sense that I've been putting forwards a little bit higher. Especially with this, where we're just talking about kind of the top 75. I think maybe it changes a little bit and balances out a little bit more when we, double that and get into the later rounds. But earlier on in the draft, I think I am prioritizing forwards a little bit more highly than defenders.
Yeah,
so that probably accounts for those discrepancies for my ranks.
Yeah, that's fair. Totti, as usual, you're Mr. Consensus, so sorry, we don't need to hear from you on this. But Ryan, I'm curious, are you intentionally downgrading defenders a little bit this year?
I don't know about that. I think it's very top heavy this year. You have the Trippiers and the Trents, and then there's kind of a mid-ish tier where there's a lot of risk reward. The Poros, the Reece James, Luke Shaws, those guys. And then I think there's better value to be had later, unless you can get Pinnock in the 6th. But after the 8th round, there's good value to round out your defenders. So if you can't get one of Trent or Trippier, then I think there's a good argument to be had for just waiting a few rounds. So maybe subconsciously that weighed in on my rankings. Yeah, fair.
All right, we don't need to dwell on that any longer. Let's actually look at some ranks here. So top 15. I brought this up. I was going to do top 12, but then there were a couple just in that range, from 11 to 15 that I thought definitely needed to be at least mentioned. Viewers will see the obvious glaring omission here, or the one thing that stands out like a sore thumb, and that is Genie ranking Kevin De Bruyne at 28 overall. We tried to talk him out of it. You know how Genie is. Just, we did the best we could, okay? So we won't even mention that any further. We'll have him on at some point, and he can defend his ranking of KDB there. But we actually have some disagreements in other places, and that's something I think will be interesting to mention, to just kind of go over quickly. So as you can see, our top 12 ends with Jack Grealish and does include Rashford, which I found a little bit interesting, and includes Odegaard in that first round as well, and excludes Son, although several of you have Son in that first round. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on maybe Son versus Rashford, or Son's, if you were to make the case for Son as a first round pick.
I mean, I think you can make a case for Son as a first round pick. He was the top scorer the season before last. He was admittedly, and I don't know if you need to take this with a grain of salt, but said he was nursing a kind of hidden injury, and that's why he sucked the entire season last year. So if that mystery injury is gone, and again, they're solely focusing on the league, and we've seen that he can score well, even if he's off some set pieces with Madison coming in. there's certainly a case to be had that he's a first round pick, especially as forwards get a little bit slim at the end of the first. So yeah, if you're picking 12th and he hasn't been taken and you need a forward, then he's not a bad person to pair with a high end mid or somebody else at the end of the first. So yeah, I think you can certainly make a case.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning also, Son had what we're calling a really awful season last year, and he still finished 23rd overall.
That's fair.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I feel like that was kind of an anomaly and an aberration in terms of kind of how we've seen him perform. And like Ryan said, if he's coming back from this injury, I think he did have surgery to fix it. It's something that I expect him to bounce back. And if you're bouncing back from 23rd, it's not a huge leap to get up into that first round. So I think it's within reason that he can be a first round pick again.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to mention quickly in the top 15?
Yeah, I think the Man City winger ranks are dependent on whether they bring in someone there. Because, again, the dominoes, if Riyad Mahrez goes, then they're very thin in midfield, other than if they think Cole Palmer is ready to step up, which I haven't seen any evidence of them thinking that. I think he is, personally. But yeah, if Mahrez goes to Saudi or anywhere else where he goes to Saudi, then and if they bring in a hot new winger, then it makes the City asset ranking a bit more difficult. But even if Mahrez doesn't go, he'll have that 8-match run that he always has. Other than that, I think if there is no big signing for City, which seems like a very decent possibility based on rumors, then I like Grealish and Foden in the top 20.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some of our disagreements quickly. So some of you will be called out, but not like in a mean way, just because you're different than everybody else.
Lovingly.
Absolutely. So hold on, let me hide this thing quickly. Okay. So we can see this. All right. So biggest disagreements. Our consensus number 58 player is Hamid Traore. And viewers can see this on the screen. Otherwise I'll dictate. Robbie has him at 71 and Robbie being the highest. Lowest. Genie has not ranked him. So neither of them are really here to defend themselves on this one. We were hoping that Robbie would, but he's got daddy duty, unfortunately. So we'll let him off the hook on this one. But does anybody want to kind of quickly run through the scenario where Hamid Traore does not live up to that consensus 58 rank?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think there's a couple scenarios. One, or I guess kind of factors. One is that he had that kind of really quick purple patch last season, and then he dealt with injury, and he was kind of in and out of the squad, and kind of a letdown towards the end of last season. We kind of got our hopes up about him based on his points per start and the fact that he was able to deliver really solid ghost points from central midfield. But I think there's a couple factors. One, Bournemouth has a new manager in Iraola, and we don't know exactly how he's going to line up yet. There's also the case to be made that maybe David Brooks comes in and takes some minutes away from Traore. I think there's a lot of warranted hype around Brooks coming back in. He was a very good player before his cancer diagnosis and somebody that hopefully can get back to his best. But then also, there's Kluivert coming in. I can imagine we'd see some
Kluivert?
more signings come in.
Kluivert.
Yeah, Kluivert, sorry.
Please.
I can imagine we can see some more signings coming in at Bournemouth, and potentially seeing Traore not starting as many games as we would like, and kind of falling into that same category as last season. So I get the argument there, and I think we'll have to kind of wait and see.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. All right, Anthony. Let's talk Anthony. Consensus number 65. Ryan, you had him ranked higher than I thought you would, to be completely honest. Genie has him at 26. Yep.
Right around
and
KDB.
Then, you're right, exactly. And then Totti and Draft Lad have not ranked him. So in the top 75, again, that's just a reminder, top 75. So curious, kind of your thoughts on this one, Ryan, because you're the resident United hater, and again, you had him a little bit higher than I thought you would.
Yeah, I don't particularly care for the boy, but
as a person, I don't know that any of us do.
But I mean, they spent a boatload of money on him. They're gonna have to start him most game weeks. Sancho's finished. So just by process of elimination, I think he's going to be starting on a decent team week in, week out. So I think he's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to be 26, but I think in terms of a mid 3, I think he'll be serviceable. So yeah, I think I'm comfortable with where I ranked him.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I wish we could, unfortunately, have Genie make the case for him, but I think you've done well enough. Totti, why have you not ranked him at all in your top 75?
I will tell you this.
Please.
He played the whole season and finished 128th last season or something around there. He will have more competition with Mount coming in. I also am still a Sancho truther.
He's finished.
he's
Pack it up.
He's not finished.
He's like 17 still.
Yeah. So he might play, but I don't think his skill set, whatever it may be, is suited for the Fantrax point scoring system. It's just he is very goal dependent. His production is not very good, so he's not going to score 15 goals and 7 assists to offset that dependency. I just don't think he will be an asset.
He started 23 games. Do you think he can?
I think he's okay to
start more than
start.
that.
I don't think he'll start more than that. I think he'll start around 23, and I think he'll end up being of a similar value, which is upwards of 100th in overall rank.
7.7 points per game overall.
Exactly.
I don't have points per start in front of me, but that's just from Fantrax. 7.7 points per game. So that does include his sub appearances, but yeah, pretty brutal. But
gnarly.
Yeah, not great. All right, let's talk Joao Pedro. Consensus rank number 67. Ryan, you, me, Totti, Gavin, all 4 of us here. We have him between 47 and 51. And I got to be honest with you, I'm starting to feel like I want to downgrade him. Draft Lad.
You're starting to write the Brighton article.
I'm starting to write the Brighton preview. And it's rough, I'll tell you. Draft Lad, Genie, Robbie have all not ranked him in their top 75. So, yeah. Is anybody else with me on that? Or are you guys fairly bullish on him?
I'm with you on that, especially seeing where I've been seeing him go, like 4th round, which is crazy. Because as you're writing in the Brighton preview, there's 600,000 attackers
Right.
in that squad, competing for minutes with Europe and everything else. Brighton's going to be a Manchester City light nightmare all season. And JP just coming into the De Zerbi system is going to have some good quality starts, as they say. But I just don't know if he's going to get enough to warrant a 4th round pick. So if I did take the punt on him, I'd have to cuff him with somebody like an Enciso who also has the same upside and can shift around that Brighton attack. So it's a big investment to have to do, 2 basically maybe 5th and 6th round picks to get that cuff. So yeah, I don't know. It's risky biz there.
The other thing is we're all sort of fondly remembering him from that season with Watford, right? 21-22. Well, as I'm writing this article, I'm going back and looking at some of these stats. He started 15 games in that season, and according to Fantrax, averaged 7.1 points per game. As far as default scoring is concerned, 3 goals and 1 assist, 16 shots on target.
For me, it's less the Watford historical stats. It's more the I believe in the Brighton recruitment process.
I got you.
If they decided to pay a ton of money for him, then they know what they're doing and they're going to play him and he's going to be good, kind of situation. Like, I'm excited about all Brighton players at this point.
I'm tempted to believe that as well.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be like throwing darts almost. You'll hit one of them and, maybe it's Enciso, maybe it's Pedro. One of them is going to be kind of a breakout and probably finish way ahead of their ADP, and the other one's going to be way below. And it's a real lottery ticket type of pick, and having that in round 4 or 5 or 6 is a little early. So it's definitely risky. I'm probably going to be downgrading as well.
Got you. All right. Moving right along. Diogo Dalot, consensus 63. Totti, you like him at 50. Gavin, you've not ranked him. I think you have him at 77 in your ranks. Ryan, 73. So that's a little bit of a difference there. Totti, why do you like him so much?
I like him so much because he was very, very good at the beginning of the season. And I believe that Ten Hag can do a job on him or with him during the off season to get him a bit more up to speed on the defensive front. And I think the reason he fell off was that in the sort of grindy, cold dark nights in Stoke kind of days, they needed someone who just was more solid, and that might still happen from time to time. But I believe that his upside warrants an earlier pick because it's prime defender upside. So if they sell Wan-Bissaka and he is announced as the number 1 right back for United, then he immediately jumps up to like Reece James, like the Poro Reece James tier for me.
That's not gonna happen though.
There's the rub, though.
No, it's not going to happen. But at 50, I think it's late enough to bet on that. It's a similar spot that we talked about with Kai, and I think Dalot has higher upside than Kai Havertz.
But you'd have to cuff him with AWB, or else you pull your hair out. So it'd be a similar situation with João Pedro and Enciso, where
probably, but you can get
gonna play.
You have to spend a third or fourth rounder and the sixth rounder on Enciso and Joe Pedro, and you have to spend a sixth rounder and the 11th rounder on Dalot and the AWB.
I don't think it's that much of a disparity, but yeah, you'd have to just get comfortable with spending 2 picks on him.
Yeah, I've been seeing people take Dalot and AWB in back-to-back rounds just to secure that cuff, and that's like an eighth round pick on AWB seems like a waste to me.
Yeah.
We
haven't ranked him in our 75, certainly. So yeah, I don't even know where he would be for me, but it would be
what projected starts for those two.
Let's see. All right. Wan-Bissaka with 17.
That's a cop out from Draft Lad.
Below with 21.
Proper timeshare of that.
Yeah. It's interesting. All right, cool. Let's talk Jadon Sancho. we just hinted at it. So let's get actually into it quickly. Draft Lad, 58 overall. Robbie 61. Gavin 69. So really no one here can really speak to maybe his true upside or what you guys possibly see in him.
I'd love to hear it.
Right. The rest of us haven't ranked him. Although Totti, I think you might have, but you were probably a little bit further towards the 75 than you would have been. Yeah.
I think Sancho will score more points than Anthony for the whole season.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think so, but yeah. I don't want to.
You also don't care.
If he, yeah, exactly.
I'd be ecstatic to be proven wrong.
So Draft Lad's saying, I mean, it's basically just because of the dearth of wingers at this point. So like, there's a lot of minutes up for grabs there. Said his expected points per start were pretty good last season, and so that's why. But he's admitting that if they sign a striker, especially a big name striker, that his fantasy value is going to take a big hit for him.
I could see Garnacho getting more starts than him at the end of the day.
More than him?
More than Sancho, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think I could see him dropping down a little bit now with Mount signing too. Like I feel like Mount might see a few minutes or a few starts on the wing. So that's also a possibility that could eat into his time. I think Garnacho is somebody that's coming up as well. I agree with that. But yeah, I think when you're talking about like these mid-round picks, I still am kind of gravitating toward upside. And it's like, are you going to take a Sancho or Declan Rice? And it's like, I don't know. It kind of depends on what your roster makeup is at that point. Like, do you go with the steady 8 points a week, or do you go with maybe, 15, 16 here and there, but he doesn't start every week as your mid 4?
Are you drafting to finish mid-season or mid-table or at the front or the bottom? So that's
Totti's article entitled exactly that.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, it's always the Sanchos and Garnachos and the likes ahead of the Declan Rices and the Abdullah Doucourés and the Steady Eddies.
Yeah, no, I mean it makes sense. I just think you have to balance that obviously with a little bit of security. Yep. But yeah, I feel you. Miguel Almiron, Genie's not here to defend him. I've not ranked him. Draftlad's not ranked him. The rest of you are close-ish to the consensus rank, which is 68. Does anybody want to delve into? I'll tell you why I've not ranked him, and that's just that I don't think that he's really the level of player that this team is going to be requiring going forward. They're going to quickly replace him. I don't know if it's going to be this season or not. But even that aside, we've seen that he has hot streaks, yes, but when he's not on one of those hot streaks, he's a pretty middling fantasy asset. I certainly don't have him in my 75. I don't know that I would have him in my top like 90.
Yeah, I've got him, I think, right at the 70 mark. And I think it's just because Newcastle doesn't really have very many other options for that right wing role right now.
Right.
If they sign somebody like a Moussa Diaby or somebody like that they've been connected with in the past, then yeah, obviously Almiron kind of drops out. But I think maybe that's why they were looking to Maddison and kind of putting him in that right wing role. But, with Tottenham getting him, that's kind of off the table. And now you've got Almiron back to kind of your default starter. So until we see a little bit more, I think I just ranked it based on kind of face value where we are right now. Haven't seen any concrete rumors of any other right wing players coming in. So I think he's maybe the best of a not so great bunch at the moment.
Anyone else? Ryan?
Yeah, I'm more with you, Joe. After that crazy run, the first part of the season, he was pretty bad. So started getting bench appearances, and then when he did start, he didn't score. And like you said, he's pretty goal dependent. And yeah, I don't see a world in which he starts regularly and scores well. So. And I think a lot of folks are going to be just fondly remembering that purple patch, and thus his value will be a little bit inflated in the draft. I can't remember off the top of my head where he's been going in the mocks, but yeah, I think he'll go before he should.
Ghost points per start, he is looking at 5.3, which is pretty miserable. His GACS percentage, meaning the percentage of his points which he relies on goals, assists, clean sheets to get him the points, is 47%, which is quite high as well. That's not kind of what you're looking for in terms of drafting to win your league, right, Toddy?
I mean, if he scores enough, then there's value there. And if we'll just need Jack Grealish to mouth off again, and then and then he'll go on the tear again.
Yeah. Oh man, did you guys see the video of Jack Grealish having to be helped to the car after the night of partying? Just couldn't even stand.
Good on him.
Oh Lord, yeah, he celebrated. He celebrated quite a bit, which good for him. Good for him.
It was an effort that he had much more to do with than last season's.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think he'll have even more this season. Although, as everyone knows, I shouldn't draft City players, so I'm going to try not to do that. Yep. All right. Last thing, guys. Just missed the cut. So I just want to know if you want to talk about any of these guys, or if there's any of them that you want to sort of make a case for or warn people away from. So you can see on the screen, just missed the cut. These are the guys that are right near that 75 overall mark. So we've got Abdoulaye Doucouré. Robbie really likes him at 53. Alex Moreno, I'm a big fan of his. And so is Draft Lad. St. Maximin, Genie really likes him this season, and Ryan sort of likes him at 60. Wilfred Zaha, Ryan and I are sort of similar on that, have him right around 70. Mykhailo Mudryk missed the cut, and there's no one really making a really strong case for him to be higher than, say, like 70. Nico Jackson, we've talked about. Yuri Tielemans, Genie likes him at 53. Gavin, 67, but if anybody watched him last season, I don't know why you would do that. And then Ivan Toney. Robbie likes him at 63. Toddy and I have him right around 70, 75, somewhere in there. So are there any of these guys that you guys want to mention before we sign off for the evening?
I wanted to sort of get the ball rolling with Ivan Toney, which is a very interesting case for me because my gut says do not touch, because it's not like an injury where he can always get back quicker or something like that. We know that he's not starting a game until February. It is also a positive so that you can know that he's not starting a game in February, but I would hate to play with 4 sub spots from August to February. That said, based on his expected WAR numbers, even if he only played from February to the end of the season, compared to players who played the whole season. So if he compared to like Nico Jackson, he would still probably come out on top, because once February comes around, he steps into a well-oiled Brentford machine and takes the mantle and runs with it. So he can easily score 10, maybe 12 goals from when he starts to the end of the season, which would probably make him close to one of the most valuable players for the end of the season.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to rank, very difficult to advise on drafting. But if you like, I would definitely have him higher in my personal ranks if I was playing in a playoff league.
Did we ever figure out if in leagues where you have that IR, if a suspension covers that? Are you able to keep him in that slot?
I think so. I wrote an article about why leagues should use IR slots. It's in the draft kit. Check it out. Thanks, Ryan. But I think that your league can actually make that determination. So
There's a toggle. Yeah.
There's a toggle that says whether or not you want to allow suspended players to be in the IR spot.
Yeah. That's a game changer.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
If that's a case in your league, he might be like a 5th round pick.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of holding dead space for 4 months. Because roster space is just so key. But I get the argument. But
and think about
not for me.
Dude, think about you have to make it through the festive fixtures. You have to make it through the congested season with 4 bench spots, like Totti said.
Yeah, you have to swap out an 8th round pick and that roster spot, and price in maybe a game or two potentially you losing just because of that move. It's tricky. So
I think there's an argument to be made too about him not coming in like ideal shape. It's not that he's allowed to train with the team, even like he's banned from all football activities, like anything that is with a professional squad, he's not allowed to do until his suspension is up. So even if he is training on his own, it's not the same as getting game experience. So I would expect, he's a very, very talented player, but I don't know that you can come from that much time away from not having game situations and jump straight into your best form in the Premier League. So I think that's another factor.
That's fair.
I imagine there's a sniper hired who shoots out balls if they see Tony playing with balls.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, couple points. Alex Moreno, I'm fairly low on because of the bad injury at the end of last season. So I think he's been taken a lot higher than he should be. St. Max is just a lottery ticket. I probably would push him down a bit. But I mean, they haven't signed anybody big in those attacking roles really. So until they do, he's a decent, like I said, lottery pick. Zaha, I think, is going to leave. So that was just a whatever placeholder.
Same.
I think he's gone.
There is still the Palace offer on the table, 4 years, I think it is. But he has
the other 4 whatever offers.
Right. He has suitors. I think I can't even remember who all's looking at him, but Italian clubs. Yeah. Right.
Lazio, Saudi. I want to say Dortmund maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah.
With St. Max, do you think he starts over the Isak and Wilson combo? Because Isak was playing on the left wing, and that worked pretty well toward the end of the season. That's I think why I'm out on St. Max.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Like I said, I think I probably push him a little bit down, but yeah, that's one that like preseason is going to tell you, I think, a fair amount. So we'll see about that.
Yeah,
Tielemans, it's a crapshoot whether or not he's going to compete with Dougie Luiz for set pieces at Villa. So that's really where he gets most of his points and Dougie Lou, to be honest. So yeah, that's going to be another kind of preseason monitoring for me. So I don't really want either of them because I think they're going to cancel each other out for the most part.
Yeah, and Tielemans was miserable last year, even when he had game time. I mean, he just looked like he didn't care. But yeah, I mean, 8.4 points per start last season. I'm trying to look up his ghost points and whatnot. Let me see real quickly here. Okay. Ghost points per start were 6.9. Not great. And 22% dependent on goals, assists, and clean sheets. But again, that will be the case when you've scored 8.4 points per start. So I guess that makes sense. Does anybody else want to touch on any of these guys that just barely missed the cut?
I guess I'd say I think Mudryk can jump up a lot depending on preseason.
Yeah.
He's one I just have my eye on. I haven't ranked him yet just because we haven't seen any indication of how Chelsea is going to line up. And I think it's, right now Sterling is kind of assumed to be in that left wing role. But I think Mudryk has the potential and obviously was signed for a reason. I think he struggled last season, but I think he's got a ton of potential and could come good. So he's one I'm keeping an eye on, and he might move into my, I guess, upper 75, top 75 ranks just based on how things go.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and I don't think we have any questions from the gantry, but we'll go ahead and just and close her on down because it's already been a marathon. I knew it was going to be a long one, but thank you guys for sticking it out. It was incredible to get back at it and just lay down a pod for old time's sake. I hope that we can do more in the coming days. Again, I am going to be on holiday for a week and a half in just over 2 weeks. So I won't be here. You guys are welcome to record, but in the meantime, obviously, I think we want to try to get as many as we can recorded. There are some maybe FPL folks we want to talk to if we get the chance. Potentially some who have come on previous seasons or pre-seasons that we've talked to in the past. Potentially we'll have some representatives or those who are in the know from some teams like Wolves and Sheffield United, maybe Norwich. Not Norwich. Nottingham Forest. My bad. Nottingham Forest. And then hopefully some other insiders. So if anybody who's listening and if you're still listening, I always say, we love you. But if you are still listening and you are an insider, you are somebody who knows a club, especially one of the promoted ones, very, very well, we would love to hear from you. And if you are comfortable having your mug on camera, please come on and we would love to chat with you about it and get some thoughts on the fantasy sort of prospects of your club and this club that you know so much about. So yes, if you do, get at us. Otherwise, just stay tuned. We'll be trying to record as many as we can. No promises it's going to be super regular because it is still the summer and we're writing a million articles for the draft kit. But yeah. Okay. That's all I'll say. Check out the draft kit. It's amazing. We've put a lot of work into it. Listeners, you're the best. That's all I got. Anything else from you guys? Nope. Beautiful.
Adios to the muchachos and the muchachas.
Well said. All right, guys. Gonna end it there. Cheers.